Billionaire's icy fall leads to touching encounter. Discover how this maid's life was transformed. The icy wind whipped through the sprawling grounds of the Thompson mansion as Sarah adjusted the strap of her apron, a chilling reminder of the burdens she carried. Each day felt like an endless loop of scrubbing floors, making beds, and tending to the whims of the overly critical Thompson family. The opulence around her was a stark contrast to the small one-bedroom apartment she shared with her ailing grandmother, whose needs were ever growing. Sarah struggled to find the balance between earning enough to pay the rent and providing care, while her dreams of painting faded like an unfinished canvas. Today, the mansion, usually echoing with laughter, was eerily quiet. A heavy cloud hung overhead, tense and pregnant with snow. As she rifled through the linen closet, a sudden commotion outside caught her attention. Mr. Thompson, bustling around for his weekend inspection, slipped on the ice. She rushed to the window, her heart racing, as the sight of him sprawled on the ground sent a wave of adrenaline coursing through her veins. At that moment, it was no longer about who he was, the billionaire hunched over paperwork, nor the unyielding standards he imposed. It was about a man, vulnerable, cold, and still. She dashed outside without thinking twice, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. As she reached his side, her mind was a storm of conflicting emotions. The man she had served dutifully suddenly lay before her like a child, stripped of power and wealth. "Mr. Thompson," she whispered, kneeling beside him. As her fingers brushed against his hand, a breathless panic ignited in her chest. How was it possible that this moment, this devastating encounter, could unearth something buried deep within her? "You need help. I'm calling for an ambulance." Her urgency broke through the fog of his confusion, and for an instant, their eyes locked. She saw more than just a wealthy employer. She saw the humanity beneath the surface. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks, and as Mr. Thompson recovered, he and Sarah formed an unexpected bond. Over dull meals she had served in the past, they exchanged stories, their truths stripping away the formalities that defined their relationship. Sarah confided in him, revealing the dreams that lay dormant beneath the weight of her responsibilities. The flickers of hope ignited within her. But just as she began to feel the pulse of opportunity, his proposition cut through the air with a sharp vulnerability she had never anticipated. "I want to help you pursue art," he said one afternoon, his tone serious, but excitement played behind his eyes. It shook her to her core. The prospect of breaking free clashed with her loyalty to her grandmother, who relied on her more than ever. The gilded gate to aspiration now felt like a fortress graffitied with echoes of judgment. Feeling the walls close in, Sarah hesitated, the weight of expectation heavy on her chest. As the whispers from the Thompson social network grew louder, doubt wormed its way into her heart. Was this the moment she had been waiting for? Or a facade concealing a harsher reality? Torn between the possibility of flight and the obligations anchoring her, she felt the ground beneath her shift with every revelation. With every promise of a brighter future, the conflicting ties to her roots strangled the burgeoning hope inside her. The moment she believed she could soar, chaos ensued. Betrayal, stark and overwhelming, shattered her trust. The once enigmatic Thompsons revealed a coldness that clawed at her very identity. She was thrust not only into a world of ambition, but into the thorns that accompanied it. With determination swelling inside her, Sarah stood at a precipice. Which path would she take, and at what cost? Time ticked away. Decisions loomed closer. and the choice itself threatened to consume her entire being. What path would Sarah choose? Sarah lingered in the vast mansion, the hollow beauty surrounding her doing little to mask the turmoil brewing inside. The majestic chandeliers overhead glimmered, casting fractured reflections on her face in the mirror by the entryway. Each flicker felt like a judgment, a reminder of her fractured dreams that seemed so tantalizingly close yet overshadowed by her lots. As the clock ticked through the afternoon, she replayed Mr. Thompson's words. His offer echoed in her mind, mixing with the whispers of her grandmother's expectations. Pursue art. Was that a path she could genuinely tread? Or was it another illusion crafted by a world far removed from her own? The question lingered like frost in the air. Determined to clear her mind, she turned to her paint-stained sketches tucked away in the back of the utility closet. The faded pages held fragments of her spirit, shards of who she longed to be. Briefly, she allowed herself to dream. Each brushstroke she imagined brought vitality back to her dormant dreams, whispering promises of freedom and self-expression. However, with each heartbeat came the weight of responsibility. The vibrancy of colors clashed horrifically with the muted shades of her life's reality. Tonight, she whispered to herself, as she felt a surge of defiance. She would take action, realize that fleeting dream somewhere between the stale walls of servitude and the fresh canvas of artistry. It was a risk, one that could shatter her world anew. Yet the thought of stepping into a different future grew louder than her fears. She mapped out a plan, each step tinged with uncertainty, but flavored by hope. Would she approach Mr. Thompson and accept his assistance? The fear of rejection gnawed at her stomach like a ravenous wolf. As she crept through the mansion later that evening, the house remained wrapped in an unsettling stillness. She thought about their conversations, moments shared over steaming cups of tea, about the laughter that sometimes cut through the tension of their roles. Meeting him felt both daunting and exhilarating, as if facing the sun after a lifetime in shadows. With a shaky breath, Sarah made her way to Mr. Thompson's study, the air thickening with anticipation and dread. The door was ajar, a golden sliver of warmth radiating from within. She paused before making her entrance, her heart thundering against her ribs. What if he viewed her ambition as some naive whim? As she pushed open the door, she found him enveloped in the glow of a desk lamp, surrounded by stacks of papers, a man seeming at once devoted and burdened. He glanced up to meet her eyes, the moment stretching painfully, filled with half-formed words and unspoken feelings. "Sarah," he said softly, a hint of surprise breaking through the tension. "What brings you here?" "I've thought about what you said. About art, and—" A tremor quivered in her voice. The words danced in the back of her throat, begging for release. "Those dreams," he interjected with an earnestness that almost made her falter. "They matter. You matter." Tread lightly, she reminded herself. This was not just an opportunity. It was a doorway lined with thorns. The stakes had never felt higher. Moments stretched like thin strands of glass, ready to shatter under pressure. "Mr. Thompson, she began, asking herself if now was the time to take the plunge into vulnerability. "I want to accept your help, but questioning her worth, weighing whether ambition would destroy her commitments, gripped her in a vice-like hold. She needed to assert her voice while protecting the fragile bond they had formed. "I don't want to believe I'm merely a project for you," she finally admitted, her honesty hanging in the air, a heavy weight with a sharp edge. His gaze deepened, the moment crystallizing. Here, amidst wealth and grandeur, she was stripping back the layers of doubt, extending a raw piece of her soul into the open. "The time has come to face what really matters," he said, his expression unwavering. But what did that truly mean? Would she have the strength to follow this unexpected path? Or would she retreat into the safety of the familiar, even if it was suffocating? As she stood toe-to-toe with her choices, Sarah felt the edges of her old life crumbling. The consequences loomed like shadows in the fading light. Whatever her decision, something inside her was irrevocably shifting. What awaited her on the other side of this threshold? The air crackled with undeniable tension, and Sarah took a deep breath to steady herself. "Mr. Thompson, I believe in this dream of mine," she managed, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. "I want to explore it, but I cannot ignore my doubts." "Doubts are natural," he assured her, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed in a manner that signaled both curiosity and concern. "But it's your passion that needs nurturing. This isn't merely an investment, Sarah. It's a belief in potential." His words resonated deeply. It was a reflection of everything she yearned for. She had a tantalizing chance to break free from the chains that had bound her since childhood. Yet the swift currents of uncertainty toyed with her resolve. What if she failed? What if the colors she longed to use were merely figments of her imagination, fading too quickly to capture on canvas? "Can you trust yourself?" he asked, breaking through the whirlpool of her thoughts. Each syllable was like a beacon, reaching out to illuminate the dark corners of her self-doubt. Trusting yourself is the first step to realizing any dream. A fragment of hope flickered within her, igniting a rebellious spirit previously snuffed out by caution and convention. Perhaps this wasn't merely a whim. Adopting Mr. Thompson's perspective allowed her to see her aspirations not as extravagant fancies, but as essential elements of who she was designed to be. Before she could talk herself out of it, she took a step forward, leaning slightly on his desk, as if it anchored her in the suddenly vibrant moment. "Then I'm ready to try," she declared, surprising herself with the quiet authority in her voice. "I want you to mentor me, to help me navigate this path." "Good," he replied, a sincere smile replacing the cynicism she thought she saw before. He stood, moving around the desk to join her in this tentative pact. "Let's make a plan. Together we'll set measurable goals and work toward them one step at a time. Art is a journey, not a destination." The warmth of his encouragement washed over her, but it was swiftly followed by the chill of self-doubt creeping back in. "But what if my art isn't good enough? What if I'm just pretending to be someone I'm not?" "Everyone begins somewhere, Sarah," he countered firmly. "You won't know your true potential until you take that leap. And remember, the most critical audience you need to reach is yourself." His words echoed in her mind as she pondered their implications. Was it possible to transform her creative passion into something palpable, powerful, and most importantly, fulfilling? With Mr. Thompson's guidance now a tangible lifeline, Sarah's mind began mapping a course, exhibiting her art, seeking critiques, attending workshops, even sharing her journey on social media. "Let's start with something simple," he suggested, his enthusiasm palpable. "How about you create a piece inspired by this moment, the excitement, the fear, make it your own?" Sarah nodded, her heart racing at the challenge, while uncertainty still skated beneath her skin. "Okay, I can do that." But as she stepped back from his desk, the frightening thought wrapped around her heart. She was still tethered to the mansion, the expectations that lingered like mold in her life. Just as quickly as she wrestled her ambition into reality, she felt the menace of her responsibilities preparing to tug her back into the shadows of her old life. With newfound determination, she battled the inner voice that questioned her capabilities, reminding herself of the beauty obscured by fear and doubt. This collaboration with Mr. Thompson was her chance to step into light, to breathe life into her visions. Yet as she left his study, the weight of her reality pressed heavily upon her. The art didn't reside solely on canvas. It required her to challenge everything she believed about herself and her place within this world. What would she do when the familiar responsibilities threatened to pull her back? Would she strive to hold on to this elusive dream, or allow it to dissolve like so many others before? The true confrontation lay ahead, one destined to test the depth of her resolve. With her heart racing, Sarah prepared to face not just a new creative endeavor, but the ultimate challenge, the confrontation between her dreams and the looming expectations of her life. Would she rise to meet this new version of herself, or would she fall back into oblivion, as so many before? As Sarah walked away from Mr. Thompson's study, she felt the echo of his words fade behind her, replaced by the pressing reality of the mansion's confines. Each step she took seemed to resonate with the rhythm of her heartbeat, a reminder that the world outside was still waiting, while the old expectations loomed like specters at the edges of her future. She paused in the expansive hallway, its ornate walls adorned with family portraits that bore the weight of history, and that filled the air with a sense of their unyielding judgment. A flicker of doubt crept back in, urging her to reconsider her resolve. Was she even capable of creating art? Or was she merely playing a part in a life crafted by others? Clenching her fists, she tried to shake off the worry, focusing instead on the vision she had just promised herself. Despite the heaviness pressing against her chest, thoughts of creativity ignited a longing within her. The walls of the mansion, once familiar and suffocating, began to feel like a canvas of their own, a backdrop for the transformation she hoped to embrace. Still, an undeniable truth tugged at her mind. Every stroke of her brush could draw her further away from the security and the people she loved. The young maid tucked an errant lock of hair behind her ear and pulled out her phone, instinctively scrolling through social media. She scanned posts from artists she admired, intent on finding common ground. Their cheerful selfies, colorful palettes, and vibrant energies created a stark contrast to the bleak reality she faced. An artist was often considered a maverick, a creator who dared to embrace their passions without reservation. And yet, here she was, tethered by duty and the whispers of insecurity. Feeling a surge of determination, Sarah tapped out a message to Mr. Thompson, detailing her need for guidance beyond simply creating a piece of art. She needed a roadmap, a true path that would lead her to meaningful expression without losing herself to the pressures surrounding her. It took only moments for him to respond, his encouragement lighting a flicker of hope within her. Together, they would define what her art would mean, not just here within the mansion's walls, but in relation to her dreams and the chaos everyday life presented. Setting boundaries around her responsibilities now felt urgent. Sarah committed to setting aside at least 10 hours a week for her art practice. Drawing a line in the sand between obligations and aspirations felt daring, an act of rebellion against the norms that had shaped her life thus far. But would it be enough? The looming reality of her servitude continued to cast shadows, whispering fears of inadequacy that clawed at her resolve. Over the next few days, she kept her vows to herself, but noticed her thoughts returning to the mansion's demands: laundry to wash, rooms to clean, and inevitable encounters with the gruff Mr. Bentley, her employer's stubborn father. The moments spent creating became suspect, with each brush stroke and pencil sketch a reminder of the life she had momentarily stepped away from. Then, one evening, as she devoted time to her canvas in her tiny attic studio, loud footsteps echoed from below. Sarah halted, heart pounding. It was Mr. Bentley, thundering through the mansion as if to assert his authority. The noise sliced through her focused concentration, sending waves of anxiety through her. Why was it so difficult to find a balance? When he appeared at the foot of the stairs, his fury palpable as he demanded her attention, she felt the precarious balance of her newfound identity shake. Would she be able to stand firm and defend her right to chase her dreams? The time had come to face her adversities head-on, as she grappled not only with her artistic ambitions, but also the expectations that threatened her aspirations. How would she respond? Would she seize the moment and embody her new resolve? Or would she allow the suffocating weight of old obligations to bury her artistic spirit once more? With her heart racing, Sarah braced herself, knowing that this confrontation could either fortify her commitment to her dreams or shatter her fragile confidence. The impending clash signaled a pivotal moment, one that could decide the trajectory of her future. As she turned to face Mr. Bentley, Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. The palpable tension hung in the air, crackling with the weight of unspoken words. This was the moment she feared yet knew deep down she needed. Mr. Bentley's formidable presence was almost a physical barrier, but she raised her chin, determination coursing through her veins. "What do you need, Mr. Bentley?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "You've been precious little help lately," he growled, dismissing her with a wave of his hand. "I notice you've been spending more time in your little art nook than doing your actual job." Each word struck her like a slap, but Sarah clenched her fists at her sides instead of retaliating. This wasn't just about laundry or dusting. It was about asserting her existence beyond the mansion's walls. "With all due respect, sir, I believe I am fulfilling my duties. Is that so?" He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Your duties don't just involve physical labor. They also involve responsibilities to this family. You can't afford to get lost in your dreams." His words sank deep into her psyche, igniting a storm of conflict. He was right in one sense. This mansion, with its polished floors and carefully curated decor, had trained her to think that service was her only value. But where did that leave room for her dreams? As fear fought with her burgeoning confidence, Sarah took a step forward, defying the distance he sought to impose. "I need to pursue my art. It's not an indulgence, but a fundamental part of who I am, and I can do both." The unexpected defiance from the meek maid startled him. For a moment, he appeared speechless. But then, a sneer curled his lip, and she realized the dissonance between their worlds was even greater than she had imagined. "Do you think art will pay your bills, secure your future? You're wasting your time." His scorn felt like a sharp knife, but it only sharpened her resolve. "Art is more than a career. It's a lifeline," Sarah countered. Each word was a release, brushing away the oppressive layers that had clouded her mind. He crossed his arms, seemingly unfazed by her passionate response. "And what happens when you abandon your duties for whims? This mansion doesn't run itself." A pulse of clarity surged through her. No longer would she let guilt dictate her worth. "This life may not run itself, but it cannot stifle another. I refuse to choose between myself and the expectations you're enforcing." His expression wavered between dismissal and contemplation. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, a trace of understanding perhaps, or recognition of her resolve that he hadn't expected. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by irritation. "You're playing a dangerous game, Sarah. These dreams of yours might lead you nowhere." "I have to take that risk," she stated firmly. "Otherwise, I won't be living, merely existing." For a moment, she held her ground, and in that silence, the shadows of doubt retreated slightly. She thought of her sketches, of color and vibrancy that screamed to be released from confinement. The mansion and its demands were suffocating her, threatening to silence her creative call. Mr. Bentley's gaze bore into her, searching for weakness. "You have no idea what you're up against." "Perhaps," Sarah replied, her heart beating steadily now, "but I'm ready to find out." With dimensions of her argument laid bare, the confrontation shifted, a pivot point where rigidity melted away. Her voice, once timid, was now a representation of both vulnerability and strength. Something had changed within her, and she believed Mr. Bentley sensed it too. As he turned to leave with an air of resignation, Sarah felt the urge to find resolution on her terms. "Mr. Bentley," she called after him, a newfound confidence surging forward. "If you don't believe in my right to pursue my art, that's your choice. But it doesn't erase my determination." He paused for just a heartbeat, then walked away, leaving Sarah in the dim light of the attic. This confrontation wasn't an end, but a beginning. She had tasted empowerment, and it ignited a fire within her that she feared would consume her wholly. Now, with the echoes of their exchange reverberating in her mind, Sarah was left with a choice, to retreat or to forge ahead boldly into her artistic journey. She stood in the threshold of change. The real question now loomed before her. Would she step through it, By challenging Mr. Bentley, she had confronted her fears. But as waves of self-doubt threatened to seep back in, she noticed a new canvas waiting. More than paint needed to fill its emptiness. Her next move would define who she truly was. Would she risk it all again to create something remarkable? Or would she allow the fear of failure to dictate her path? With fingers trembling, Sarah reached for her brush, ready to paint the future she dared to envision. The brush glided across the canvas, the colors swirling together in a vibrant dance. Each stroke released a fraction of the tension coiled inside her, yet even the act of creation was accompanied by a gnawing uncertainty. Sarah stared at her work, half finished, feeling the weight of her decision almost pressing down on her chest. The mansion's shadows seemed to creep in on her, reminding her of the confrontation with Mr. Bentley and the responsibilities tugging at her conscience. Could she truly balance her duties and her art? A flicker of doubt darted through her mind, urging her to return to the safety of her old routine, a routine shaped by expectation, by conformity. But each bright hue of paint whispered of freedom, of wild possibilities just beyond the confines of her life. Taking a deep breath, she refocused on her canvas. It was more than just paint. It was an expression of the person she was striving to become, a declaration of her right to pursue life on her terms. With every stroke, she breathed in defiance, exhaling the remnants of her old self-limiting beliefs. Moments rolled into hours, and the vibrant palette sprawled before her, transforming into a vision entirely unrecognizable from where she had begun. This was her sanctuary, her rebellion. She refused to allow Mr. Bentley's harsh words to paint over her aspirations. As twilight deepened and the light in the attic waned, her focus drew inward. What would her art contribute? What message did she wish to convey? The canvases she had often filled with unspoken desires, they were now bursting forth, coaxing her to realize her potential. She grasped for this opportunity, not just to capture beauty, but to evoke emotion, to bridge worlds unseen by those unchanged by her reality. Yet amid her creative fervor, the specter of Mr. Bentley returned to haunt her thoughts. His dismissal echoed in her ears, mocking her attempts to grow. "You have no idea what you're up against." What if he was right? What if she ventured too far from her station, only to be met with failure? The uncertainty was a relentless tide, threatening to pull her under. Sarah paused, staring into the depths of the paint on her brush. Those colorful waves held her promise, and she loathed the idea of forsaking it. To make real progress, she realized she must confront him again. Not only to articulate her vision for herself, but to challenge his perceptions of her. Firm resolve settled inside her. She needed to be vocal not only with her ambitions, but with Mr. Bentley's misconceptions. She could no longer tiptoe around her longing for a future draped in creative expression. With a decisive flick of her wrist, she dipped her brush, and as color met canvas, clarity broke through the fog of indecision. Stepping into her truth would mean more than personal growth. It would challenge the very hierarchy that kept her anchored in place. As night fell, Sarah remained absorbed in her work, each stroke pouring forth the essence of who she was meant to be. But the forthcoming interaction with Mr. Bentley loomed large and unresolved, a tension that thrummed like an unresolved chord. Every ounce of confidence she summoned felt precarious, teetering on the brink of uncertainty. But she had to reach out, to stake her claim not just as a maid but as an artist. It was the only path forward. Would she muster the courage to face him, to demand acknowledgement of her talents? The gripping uncertainty stirred within her as she finished her work, leaving one last stroke to add. Tomorrow would not just be another day of duty, but a pivotal confrontation where she would define her existence. The mansion's walls, once her cage, would soon bear witness to her resolve. With a final, liberating breath, Sarah prepared herself for the challenge ahead, the looming question echoing in her mind. Would her voice be enough to shake the foundations of expectation, or would this journey lead her to an unexpected crossroads? Dawn broke over the mansion, casting a warm glow that filtered through the curtains, whispering promises of new beginnings. Sarah woke with tightened nerves, and a newfound determination pulling her from her slumber. Today was the day she would confront Mr. Bentley. She felt as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice, about to leap into the unknown. As she tidied the attic, her heart rhythmically replayed exchanges from the past. What would she say to him? Words hung unspoken in her mind, but today they would crystallize into powerful declarations. She wouldn't shy away from voicing her aspirations anymore. With a deep breath, she descended the staircase. Each step echoed with the weight of her decision, the mansion itself seeming to notice her shift. The once confining walls had transformed into a resonant space of possibility, urging her to embrace the pungent scent of artistry lingering in the air. The art supplies still lay strewn about, reminding her of the vibrant escape she'd made into creation, and how much further she could stretch those wings. Her duties that morning fell into routine, but the familiar motions were set against a backdrop of electric anticipation. She caught fleeting glances from the other staff members, some curious about her recently vibrant demeanor, others oblivious to the transformation brewing within her. The energy in her veins fueled her resolve. Sarah finished cleaning prematurely, anxiously checking the clock, willing it to move faster. The hours dragged on, and the prospect of Mr. Bentley's office weighed heavily in her thoughts. In that room, he was an imposing figure, authoritative and uncompromising. Yet, she knew he also possessed a knowledge and appreciation for artistry that could be tapped into. At last, the moment arrived. As she approached the polished wooden door to his office, a sensation of empowerment swelled within her chest. It wasn't about demanding respect out of defiance. It was about claiming her space in a world that had overlooked her. She knocked, the sound ricocheting in the stillness. "Mr. Bentley?" "Come in," came his clipped response. With a resolute push, she entered the dimly lit room. He looked up from his desk, a mix of surprise and skepticism flickering across his face. "Sarah," he said, his voice revealing an undertone of authority. "What brings you here? Is there an issue with your duties?" Taking a steadying breath, she shifted focus from his authoritative presence to the weight of her conviction, the art within her that wished to shine. "No, Mr. Bentley. I wanted to talk about my art." His brow furrowed, the skepticism deepening. "Art? It's a hobby, isn't it? You know how we value efficiency and effort here." Gathering her strength, Sarah pressed on. "It is not just a hobby for me. It's a crucial part of who I am and the life I'm striving for. I need to be more than just a maid. I need the freedom to express what I feel through painting." A slight shake of his head was her immediate answer, but she pressed forward. "You said I have no idea what I'm up against. Maybe you're right. But you also don't know the extent of my commitment." The words tumbled out, an impulsive declaration she couldn't hold back. As silence enveloped them, Sarah's heart thudded loudly, the tension palpable. Would he dismiss her again, drawing rigid lines around their relationship? Or would he recognize her determination, her need for acknowledgement? Suddenly, his expression shifted slightly, revealing a glimmer of curiosity buried under a mountain of skepticism. "Show me your work." Shock coursed through her. Had she found an opening? This wasn't just a challenge of speaker versus listener, but a call to open a dialogue forged through her passion. She hesitated, unsure whether to take a step closer into his world or retreat, fearing rejection again. But the door had cracked open, and she could no longer ignore the relentless call of her art. What lay ahead could either bring her closer to validation or force her back into a role predefined by someone else's vision. With a deep breath, she willed herself to respond, ready to reveal her truth, even if it means stepping into a realm of vulnerability. Would this moment mark the beginning of a new relationship forged in understanding? Or would she find herself retreating once again into the shadows of expectation? The silence in Mr. Bentley's office thrummed with unspoken tension. Sarah stood there, heart racing, a collision of excitement and dread. It was all too real now. His simple request echoed in her mind. Show him her work? The gravity of that statement brushed against her consciousness like a cold draft. Did he really want to see what lay behind her hesitant and reserved exterior? Gathering her breath as though it might evaporate if she hesitated too long, Sarah finally nodded. I will, she affirmed, her voice steadier than she felt. She wasn't sure how far she could push this moment. Would he see beyond the strokes of paint to the heart beating fiercely behind them? She turned on her heel, rushing back to the attic, her sanctuary. Every step was a weighty mix of apprehension and exhilaration. The attic had been her fortress of solitude, a place where she utterly lost herself in swirling colors and textures. The thought of sharing that sacred space with Mr. Bentley shook her to her core. Once inside, the familiar chaos of art supplies felt reassuring. Paint tubes like scattered dreams, brushes ready to articulate her feelings in a language deeper than words. Yet she paused before the canvases, each one a fragment of her soul, spilling secrets onto vibrant cloth. Would they translate properly? The very essence of her passion was on the line. Choosing a canvas became a personal showdown, each piece shouting for her attention. She clutched a particular painting, one that framed a sunset over serene waters, a visual representation of hope and reflection. This piece embodied her yearning for freedom and self-expression. As she re-entered the office, the gravity of vulnerability intensified. The room felt narrowed, his presence dominating the space like an unknowable force. Mr. Bentley's eyes narrowed slightly, his perplexed demeanor hovering at the periphery of skepticism. She set the canvas before him. It felt as though she had laid bare her very being for his judgment. Here, she said softly, daring to meet his gaze. This is one of my recent works. Silence enveloped them once more, this time cut by the sound of her pounding heart. Mr. Bentley studied the painting, his inscrutable expression revealing little. At that moment, Sarah was stripped down to nothing but her own heartbeat, raw and exposed. What is it about this piece that speaks to you? He finally inquired, his voice measured yet curious. His question pierced through her defense mechanisms, forcing her to strip away layers of hesitation. This required not just a presentation of art, but an articulation of self. It represents my escape, my thoughts, the colors of my existence. I feel trapped often, lost in expectation. But this is my liberation, a moment of peace in chaos. His brow furrowed. The skepticism remained but softened at the edges, a hint of contemplation creeping in. And you believe this is worthy of calling it your life's mission? To be an artist? Her pulse quickened. This was the contradiction she had felt for so long. Yes, she repeated, stronger now. But it's more than just artistry. It's about finding my place in a world that often overlooks those who serve. A flicker of understanding danced across Mr. Bentley's features, but it was quickly dismissed. Art requires more than passion, Sarah. It demands a market. Who will support your endeavors? His words landed like cold stones against her fervent dreams. But this time, instead of retreating, Sarah stood taller. Her voice resonated with determination. I can build that support. I will find a way. Perhaps even here. Mr. Bentley locked eyes with her, and for a brief moment, she believed he saw the fire igniting within her. Ambition without a plan is just a pretty picture. She bridged the gap between fear and fortitude. Help me then. Let us step into this together. You have connections, resources. Art can thrive. I could make it happen if only I had the chance. For the first time, a genuine glimmer of intrigue replaced skepticism in Mr. Bentley's gaze. Tell me how. As the words hung palpably in the air, Sarah realized that she stood not only at the precipice of her aspirations, but on the brink of a potential partnership that could pivot her existence. Would she be able to convince him to take the leap with her? Would they forge a collaboration, Or was she simply offering a glimpse into a dream destined for dismissal? She held her breath, turning the next moment over in her mind, preparing to dive into plans that might unfold with fragility and vigor alike. This was not just about art. It was about the essence of who she was, and who she could become if only given the opportunity. As she leaned in closer to present her vision, she felt the undeniable shift of energy in the room, changing the stakes entirely. What path awaited them there, on the edge of creativity and uncertainty? Sarah could feel the weight of Mr. Bentley's gaze as it searched her face for sincerity. The air crackled with anticipation, each breath she took producing a tingling anticipation that crawled up her spine. This was more than a conversation about a painting. This was a negotiation of her identity, her ambitions solidifying in the dim light of the office, illuminated by fluorescent fixtures that buzzed above them. With resolute intent, she began to sketch out her vision. I see an exhibition, a gallery showcasing not just my art, but the work of other emerging artists like me. We could create a space that highlights diversity and authenticity. It will foster connections, inspire dialogues, and serve a community that seeks art as a form of voice. She paused, gauging his reaction, the words pouring from her mouth like the paint she so lovingly wielded. And it could be a financial success, too. Mr. Bentley's brow furrowed even deeper, his skepticism refusing to wane. And how do you plan to entice patrons? It's one thing to dream, but to actualize it? That's a different matter entirely. He tapped a finger against his temple, a silent challenge hanging in the air between them. The walls of her fortress suddenly felt impregnable. Doubt began to creep in. Did she have the answer he sought? Her vision was pure, passion at its core, yet without a strategy, it risked flaring and dying like a flickering flame. But then, amidst the turmoil, a thought crystallized. What if we organized a workshop series leading up to the exhibition? We could invite the community to engage, learn, and create alongside us. People want to connect with art, not just see it. They want to be part of it. Her voice escalated in pitch with enthusiasm, gaining momentum now. We could showcase these workshops on social media to build a following and secure sponsorships. Brands love a good cause. His lips pursed thoughtfully. Interesting tactic. People do love a story behind their art. Sarah seized the moment as if wielding a paintbrush. Exactly. We create a narrative that draws people in, shares our journey, our struggles. An art exhibition as a call to arms, where everyone plays a role. Tension hung thick between them. Mr. Bentley studied her, his expression melding contemplation and consideration. The flicker of interest sparkled again in his eyes, and for the first time, it no longer felt like a fleeting mirage. "Tell me more," he prompted, leaning forward, curiosity overshadowing skepticism. Encouraged, she delved deeper, each point she made unfolding effortlessly as her trust in her ideas strengthened. It won't just be about displaying art, it's about creating bonds. We'll host local musicians, involve food vendors, and make it a celebration, an expression of creativity from every corner of the community. I can reach out to artists I know, and we can begin building our network. As she spoke, the dynamic shifted, the power balance tipping ever so slightly in her favor. She was no longer just an artist. She was a visionary ready to bring forth changes. Yet, beneath her growing confidence, loomed the stark reality of potential failure. Could she truly manage the frantic wheels of practicality? What if they crashed? "Sarah." Mr. Bentley's tone drew her back to the discussion, determination stark. "This requires commitment, ongoing work, strategic marketing. It's not a one-off project. Are you ready for that kind of responsibility?" Her heart raced again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was determination. "Yes, I'm ready. I have to be." With that declaration, uncertainty fell away, replaced by an illuminating certainty. The uncertainty of her artistic journey transformed into a purposeful mission. As they mapped out the details, Sarah felt her spirit emboldened, infused with newfound clarity. There was still a long road ahead, one riddled with challenges, but she was prepared to navigate it. Yet, just as the hope began to solidify, Mr. Bentley leaned back, skepticism creeping back into his posture. "Before we move forward, I need to know something deeper, Sarah. Why this? Why so passionately?" In that moment, she realized she was teetering on the edge of revealing the raw truth of her own motivations, a truth from which she had long shied away. Would she dare to peel back those protective layers and expose the heart of the matter? The room became a sanctuary of possibilities and fears, and she could feel that this revelation might lead to either personal liberation or devastating vulnerability. Would she find the courage to confront herself and articulate the personal drive fueling her ambitions? Or would she hold back and risk shattering her own dreams before they even began? In the shimmering light of early morning, Sarah gathered her resolve as she stood before Mr. Bentley, poised at the intersection of destiny and vulnerability. This was more than just an exchange of ideas. It was the moment she would release the fervent voice that had been muffled for far too long. "Why do I need this?" she echoed, feeling the weight of his gaze challenge her resolve to reveal more than just ambition. "Because this isn't just art for me. It's the embodiment of every part of my being that has been stifled. My life has always been about meeting others' expectations. Now I want to craft something that reflects who I truly am." Her heart raced with the admission, yet each word felt like a brushstroke across the canvas of her life, illustrating a truth she had kept guarded. The room grew still. The air held its breath, awaiting Mr. Bentley's response. She dared to clutch the edges of her vulnerability, aware that this revelation might shift more than just their professional relationship. Mr. Bentley leaned forward slightly, curiosity cutting through his usual stern demeanor. "And what is that, Sarah? This who you truly are?" His challenge hung in the silence, urging her to dig deeper. "I am someone who dreams of color, who wishes to paint not just with a brush, but with narratives, emotions, and identities that often go unseen." As her words spilled out, they took on a life of their own. "Each stroke I create is a rebellion against the shadows of doubt that have plagued me. Art represents my freedom," she breathed, her conviction solidifying with each syllable. His gaze sparked with a flicker of recognition, perhaps understanding the emotional gravity she wove into her brushwork. "And you believe you can harness that freedom to stand resilient in this world?" He pushed, his skepticism gradually giving way to curiosity. "I am no longer content to simply wish. I want to act," she replied, a fierce determination radiating from her. "This exhibition isn't merely an event. It's a declaration of existence. It's a message that art and life can coexist, illuminating every forgotten corner of our striving souls. I may not have much experience, but that's precisely why I need to begin." Mr. Bentley's expression softened, the rigid lines of doubt yielding to something more human. "I commend your courage, Sarah, but courage is just one part of it. You need strategy, a fundamental understanding of business and community engagement." "Then help me learn," she urged, her voice steady with purpose. "Guide me through this. With your experience as my backbone, we can turn dreams into achievements. I refuse to let my circumstances dictate my identity any longer." He paused, deliberating her words, weighing the sincerity against the challenges that came with nurturing dreams. "All right," he relented cautiously. "We'll forge this path together. But understand, this will require abiding commitment. It will expose both your vulnerabilities and your drive." In that moment, exhilaration coursed through Sarah. They laid the foundation for their collaboration. She shared her vision for the series of workshops leading to the exhibition. Mr. Bentley lent insights into marketing, and they devised a plan that transformed raw hope into tangible goals. Days morphed into weeks, and the mansion became more than a backdrop. It became a crucible, shaping Sarah's resolve. With each meeting, every brainstorming session, she shed layers of self-doubt, finding strength in the intersection of her duty and her passion. Mr. Bentley, initially hardened and detached, transformed into a mentor, imparting invaluable lessons that carved her path into focus. As the exhibition approached, every brushstroke became a reflection of her journey, underscoring her growth. She poured into her work the essence of her experiences, encapsulating the struggle and triumph of self-discovery. This was no longer just a project. It was a celebration of liberation, a loud explosion of colors that screamed individuality against a muted past. The day of the exhibition dawned, filled with promise, their preparations having coalesced into a vibrant tapestry of community, laughter, and artistic expression. With the gallery adorned in heartfelt creations, artists and spectators mingled, breaking past the invisible barriers that often segregated individuals from their creative impulses. As Sarah stood amidst the crowd, Mr. Bentley approached with a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "You've accomplished more than I ever imagined. You took the leap, and the results speak for themselves." In that instant, the applause enveloped her like a warm embrace, whispers of awe weaving through the eager faces. Sarah realized then that it wasn't just the art on canvas that resonated. It was the story behind it. The acknowledgement of her identity beyond service and the fierce acceptance of self-worth. This was her moment of triumph, standing firm in her success. Not as the maid of the Thompson mansion, but as an emerging artist fiercely claiming her space in a world that previously sought to silence her. She no longer felt constrained by expectation. She was a pioneer of her existence. With newfound confidence and recognized competence, Sarah looked around the gallery, at the faces drawn by her work, the connections formed in the joyous mingling, and the foundation laid through her artistic journey. Each painted canvas was not only a piece of art, but also a testament to her courageous spirit, and her growth echoed with the satisfaction of achievement. This journey had propelled her into an established position, no longer an afterthought, but a source of inspiration. Sarah had transformed chaos into creation, fear into fervor, and dreams into undeniable reality. Now, this was the moment to reflect, not just on her triumph, but the path that brought her here. As she soaked in every acknowledgement, she made an unspoken vow. She would continue to chase her artistry with fervor and purpose. Sarah was ready for the next chapter, armed with the wisdom learned through faith in herself and the relationships she had nurtured. She had conquered not just her circumstances, but had emerged as an advocate for dreams yet to unfold. The exhibition stood as a profound milestone, beckoning not only further personal growth, but inviting others to join her on the journey of self-discovery through art. With her voice now heard, the conversation around creativity would continue, fueled by her passion and the inspirational work that lay ahead. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement makes all the difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this breathtaking conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who struggle to pursue their dreams and need to see this inspiring ending. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. Show you're a true fan of personal overcoming stories.